Welcome to another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Along with me again is my co-host, Kent. How you doing this evening?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. And for those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a show/podcast that discusses all things boxing. Our motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. There are two main places you can go to find information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. That is the Pound for Pound Boxing Report blog page. Address for that is p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. I'll repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. You can also go to the podcast page, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. I'll repeat that, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. On each of those pages, you find past episodes. On the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, you can find not just episodes, but blogs written by yours truly. On the blog page as well as the podcast page, you can also find information on where to find me and Kent all over the internets, Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot. You can also find links on where to find the Pound for Pound Boxing Report on Facebook, on Google+, on Podomatic, Tumblr, YouTube, the Twitter handle, the email address, Pinterest board, RSS feed. You can also find the link where you can donate your account, and the address for that is the link for that, is donateyouraccount.com/P4pboxingreport. Let me repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4pboxingreport. And what happened is, and please be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account. Any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter handle will automatically have the option of retweeting it. So please, again, be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your account. With that being said, let's get the show started by doing a recap of what happened this weekend. Only one main bout to really talk about in Ontario, California, on HBO. The return of Andre Ward, coming off a 14-month layoff due to shoulder surgery. Fought Edwin Rodriguez, defending his WBA super middleweight belt over 12 rounds, unanimous decision. It was an easy fight, Kent, but very much a sloppy fight. A lot of holding, a lot of tugging going on. At one point in round 4, the referee, his name escapes me right now. I should look at
Jack Reese.
Yeah, Jack Reese deducted 2 points for both fighters because of the holding and wrestling. That's something I've never seen before. What really turned it was a sloppy affair early on, but out of round 5, round 6, Ward kind of found himself a bit. He was controlling the bout from the beginning anyway, but really started to control the bout and have his way with Edwin Rodriguez, who didn't make weight for the bout, came in 2 pounds over at the weigh-in. Look, I thought Ward would win. I thought he would win easily. But with that being said, Kent, I was a little bit disappointed in Rodriguez's performance. Not only in the fact that he showed unprofessional attitude by coming in 2 pounds over, but the way he fought during the fight. I expected more from him.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it now, he's probably the poorest world title challenger I can remember as far as his effort. He showed, it seemed from, I think early in the fight, he tried to fight, and then like as the fight went on, as the fight got more and more one-sided, it just seemed like he just packed it in. He didn't show any effort from like maybe round 4 on. There was just no effort. There was no fire. There was no desire to try and win, try to change the fight, try to hurt Ward. You know, he just was just basically following him around. And then he would clinch because he couldn't handle the speed. And it's just first 3 rounds were very, very sloppy. I thought Ward controlled the rounds simply with his jab, because that's mostly what he threw, like in the early rounds, was a jab and occasional right, but mostly he controlled the fight with the jab. But you know, he really started to like the early rounds were very, very sloppy, and I blame a lot of that on Edwin Rodriguez. Ward was guilty of his own holding, but Edwin initiated a lot of that clinching. And then in round 4, there was a moment where Jack Reese, who I applaud for doing this because I think he took control of the bout, He didn't let the bout get so out of control where he couldn't control the two guys. There was a moment in round 4 at the beginning of the round where Ward and Rodriguez were clinching, and Reese tried to break him up, and they would not listen, and they kept going, and eventually, for his trouble, Jack Reese got popped in the face. He was able to break them, and then he went over to the commission's table, and he said that he recommended fines for both fighters, and he took 2 points, not 1, but 2 points from both fighters, and that's the first time I ever scored an 8-7 round in my life for a fight. I don't remember any time scoring a round like that. But I applaud Jack Reese for taking control of the fight. I mean, people are like, "Oh, he was being aggressive. He was trying to be the star of the show." I don't think he was trying to be the star. I think he was just trying to take control of a fight that was getting out of hand. What do you want the man to do? He tried to get them to not hold the conventional way, and it didn't work. So he had to do what he had to do. And Jack Reese I think is getting a lot of respect for that. And don't be surprised if you see Jack Reese get some bigger assignments, because I think he's a very good ref. I think he showed that he can take charge when he has to, and he's strict. He doesn't let that shit fly. If you're not going to listen, he's not afraid to take points. I've seen him, in lesser fights. There was one fight, I think, at the end of last year. It was on YouTube between Victor Postol and Henry Arad, and it was towards the end of the year. I think it was late December. It was right after Christmas. It wasn't a major fight, but the point is, Postol hit Arad while he was down. It was kind of like a borderline type of call. It was like, just you kind of the discretion, and basically what Reese did was he basically broke them up. He told Postol to back up, and he took 2 points from Postol. Took 2 points. So you can see, if he thinks something's getting out of control, he needs to nip it in the bud. He will do it. And he gave the other fighter 5 minutes to recover. It didn't matter anyway. The guy ended up getting knocked out in the round. It was the very first round, and he got knocked out anyway. But the point is that Jack Reese has a reputation for taking control right away, even if it's taking points. But from once he took control of the fight, Ward seemed to box very, very effectively. He used his jab effectively. He used the uppercut, the hooks, the straight punches. Everything he used effectively. He was able to land at will. Like the punch numbers, it wasn't the output, it was the percentage that he was landing at. There was rounds where he was landing like 50 and 60% of his shots. He was very economical, but his shots were effective. Edwin didn't seem to have a real game plan. For the most part, when Ward would would land his shots, he wouldn't respond, and most times he wouldn't respond with shots. He would respond by clinching, and it made it a very, very ugly fight. I blame Ward for the first several rounds, but I think Ward tried to at least fight from round 4 on, and I couldn't give Edwin a round. You really couldn't. Because he did absolutely nothing. He wasn't effective in any round. I mean, the first 3 rounds, yeah, he did try to throw punches, but he wasn't landing much. He was very, very sloppy. And it was just a very ugly fight. I'm gonna say this right now, that Edwin Rodriguez was extremely unprofessional. Your first world title fight, you come in 2 pounds overweight. If that was my first title shot, I'd come in as best shape as I could, not 2 pounds over. And he acted like it was not a big deal. Well, sir, it is a big deal. And I've had my problems with Edwin Rodriguez, and I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt this last week. I tried to say that he would get beat, but he would put on a game performance. That wasn't a game performance. That was a pathetic performance. And the fact he came out of shape was even more disrespectful to Ward, to HBO, and to anybody who's a boxing fan. And your lapsadaisical attitude, like it didn't matter. Well, yes, it does matter, because now you probably won't be on HBO anymore. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're back on ESPN. I just don't see him ever not getting a premium TV spot anytime soon. That was extremely unprofessional. And the performance he put on was even worse. It was like insult to injury, pretty much, for HBO. I feel bad for HBO that they even aired that fight. I mean, I would start considering, telling Andre Ward to actually fight some actual live opponents, like name opponents. Because the Edwin Rodriguez, oh my God, it was horrible. It was terrible, and I felt bad for all boxing fans during the fight, because honestly, we expect more. We expect more in a fight. We expect more from supposedly world-class talent. Edwin Rodriguez is not world-class talent. I never thought he was world-class talent, and that fight proves he's not world-class talent. And furthermore, I mean, another issue I had with that HBO, it was only one fight. There was no other fights. We were subjected to an absolute terrible fight without something. At least if there was a fight before that, a decent fight, we could have said, oh well, the first fight was good.
Well, that was an attempt, as far as I'm concerned, to make Andre Ward just that mainstream star. But give him a primetime showcase fighter. That's all that was.
Yeah, I understand that, but Ward is not going to be the superstar HBO thinks he's going to be. He's just not exciting enough. He's a very skillful fighter. I give him that. And he's a very skillful fighter. And he's probably a top 5 pound for pound. I kind of knocked him down a little bit because of the inactivity and the fact that his performance wasn't outstanding, considering, and I just don't think he's going to have that one, and he's not charismatic. Andre Ward has no charisma. Very nice kid, very respectful, good person. He just has no charisma. And a pound for pound fighter needs some charisma and needs to be exciting, at least to some degree, to become a superstar on a premium boxing network. And I just don't see him ever becoming that. He's a very good fighter, though. I'm not going to take that away from him, but he's just not. He's not it. He's not that superstar. He doesn't have the superstar factor to really make a name in the sport. Not to be a huge name anyway. So
I will push back against that somewhat. Sometimes it's based on who you are in the ring with, who they put you in the ring with. And speaking of that, let's talk about the future of Andre Ward. I know after the fight, Max Kellerman and others were talking about there's only one real fight with him at 160, 168 range, 175. Gennady Golovkin, middleweight champion. I would disagree. I would love to see Ward against a Stevenson or a Kovalev as well at 175 or a catchweight bout. Given how Andre Ward has basically wiped out the super middleweight division, I know others will talk about a possible rematch with Carl Froch. I don't see that happening right now. I wouldn't mind, but I don't see it happening right now. What do you see in 2014 for Andre Ward?
More the same, just the same guys. I just don't think Goose and Tudor Promotions is the company for him to get those big fights. And I talked to a couple people, especially No Holds Barred. Ryan. He even said he's got to fight guys like Stevenson and Kovalev, and on that level, those type of names, Golovkin. He said even Chavez. For him to really become that great fighter, to really put him over as a great fighter. He said that these fights with Edwin Rodriguez, these type of level fights, are not going to do it. And I just don't see him fighting a big name in 2014. unless he gets out of that contract and with Goose and Tudor promotion. And he's tried to get out of that contract twice, and he's failed twice. So he's really stuck. He's got to get over. He's got to break that contract and try to get the top rank. At least top rank, they'll get him those fights because you got the right people there to know how to do business and get stuff done. But other than that, I just see him fighting similar guys like Edwin Rodriguez. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him fight the stablemate, to be honest with you. Brandon Gonzalez. I could see that fight. I could see those. I mean, not. I don't think him directly, but those type of guys. I just don't see him fighting any big names at all in 2014, unless he gets away from Goosen. Other than that, I just see the same type of opponents.
Who is Kovalev promoted by?
Kovalev's promoted by Main Events.
Okay. And Stevenson?
Stevenson's promoted by Jim.
Okay. Because I was thinking maybe he could, if not a fight with Golovkin or whatever, I was thinking maybe he could get a catchweight bout with either one of those guys. But you're right. It would be best. It would be. I know he's tried to break away from Goosen, but I would try again because you're right. It would be advantageous for Andre Ward going forward in his career to break away from Goosen because he can only go. His plateau can only go so high with Goosen right now. It would be higher with a top rank or shoot even a Golden Boy at this point.
Yeah, I think Goosen is a mid-level promoter, and he's even more so now because the cupboard's bare at Goose and Tudor Promotions. I mean, he's got Andre Ward and John Molina. That's basically his two guys. I mean, he does, and that's pretty much it. I mean, he has a couple local guys that he's building and local trap, but other than that, that's all he's got. And both of them, I personally think I'm not like. But if I was Ward and Molina, personally, I try to get the top rank to get big fights because nothing's happening there. There's nobody's home there. There's no. It seems like there's no interest for anybody to work with them, and that's partially because of Dan Goosen. Because Dan Goosen goes around saying, well, Andre Ward can control what he wants. Because he's the best super middleweight in the world, and he should be allowed to stay where he's at in Northern California and get guys to come to him. Well, you know what? That's delusional. Because number one, where they had the fights this weekend, the Citizens Business Bank Arena, only 4,000 people showed up. And I know for a fact that Froch fights in front of 20,000 people. Stieglitz fights in front of that many people. You know, Stevenson fights in front of that many people. You know, you could think of anybody at 68 to 75, and they fight in front of a lot of people. Do you honestly think they're going to take a pay cut to fight Andre Ward in front of 4,000 people, or even less, in Northern California? That's why the Stieglitz fight didn't happen. Because they basically said you had to come. They basically wanted Stieglitz to come to Northern California for chump change to put his belt on the line for a unification bout. And if I'm Stieglitz, I'm not gonna take chump change and a chance of losing that chip I have. Stieglitz can make more money fighting in Germany, a rematch with Abraham, than he can make fighting Ward at this point. Because Ward's not it. There's just no monetary, there's no money there at this point. And I think that the best thing Ward could do is probably, if he can get out of the Goosen contract, is move up to 75. There's no more interest in Ward fighting anybody with a name at 68. Nobody wants to fight him. You could see that. There's just no money there. To be honest with you, if I'm a fighter and somebody tells me to go to Northern California to fight in front of 4,000 people, put my belt on the line, have a chance of losing that belt, and then come back with chump change and no belt, I mean, that doesn't make any smart business sense, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. Let's move on to talk about the news of the week. There's only really been light news. One major thing happened yesterday over in Macau in preparation for the Manny Pacquiao Brandon Rios bout. A bit of a scuffle took place in a gym in Macau, China yesterday, in which uh, Robert Garcia, who was in the midst of an interview with ESPN, I believe, Freddie Roach came in, basically saying that you need to end the interview and basically leave because you're on our gym time, our meeting. Manny Pacquiao. Garcia basically said, "I'm not going anywhere." Short story, words were exchanged back and forth, some inappropriate, which led to a little scuffle, a fight back and forth between Roach and Alex Ariza. It was all caught on tape. You can see it on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report blog page. You can see it also all over the place now. It's all over YouTube and whatnot. Your thoughts, Kent, on what went down? Personally, I believe both guys were at fault. Both Roach and Team Garcia, particularly Alex Ariza, were at fault. Your thoughts on what happened yesterday in Macau?
Well, personally, I'm gonna from what I know about the whole situation with. You got to understand, Freddie's got a lot of personal issues with Robert Garcia and Alex Ariza. And a certain individual that was taping it, a guy named Ellie Seckbach. And there's no love lost between those four. None. And that was pretty much going to be a very volatile situation. So Freddie shows up. Manny hadn't gotten there yet. Well, Manny was on his way. And Freddie shows up, and he sees the gym full of people. Brandon's still running on the treadmill, or whatever he was doing. All of them sitting there like everything's, business as usual. And it was 11 o'clock. And that means that's time for that's Manny's time to use the gym to get ready. He's still finishing up preparation, and he comes over, and Freddie says, "Listen, we gotta get out of the gym." Like, he was very confrontational almost, and I can understand why, because you have three guys in there. He's in front of three guys that he doesn't really like particularly that much. He's had problems with all of them in the past, and they're still there. He didn't expect them to be there, and he was a little angry. And he went up to Robert and he said, you got to get out of the gym. It's our time. And he was like, I'm not going anywhere. We had an interview. We were done. We're still finishing up. You got to wait. But listen, I'm gonna say they were matched tone for tone. I think Robert's response was equally as nasty. And Freddie just got mad. He said, you're a excuse my language, he said, you're a fucking asshole. And right there, that opened everything up because of the way Robert said it. I'm not saying Freddie was right. Freddie came at him nasty too. But Robert came back just as nasty. Where Robert could have handled it a little bit more dignified, but he didn't. Because Robert likes to be confrontational. He likes to stroke his own ego, pretty much. Yeah, Freddie strokes his own ego too, but I have a lot more respect for Freddie than I do Robert. And then there was some words being passed back and forth, and then Alex Ariza comes out of nowhere and says that Freddie was gonna swing on Robert or something. I don't know if you saw that. I didn't see that. And Alex Ariza came across and tried to kick Freddie Roach. And as you all know, Freddie Roach has Parkinson's, and he's in his 50s. And that wasn't cool with me. That wasn't cool at all. Like, there's ways of handling it, and he didn't handle it like a man. He handled it more like a girl, because that's what girls do. They kick people.
Wait a minute now. I know girls who punch back, so I don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, in this particular instance, that's the way I reacted to it. And Freddie, as being somebody that's been kicked at, he was infuriated. He was like, and then he said, you're a jerk off, and it's made some other comments, and then he said, you fucking Mexican. And right there, that was the wrong thing to say. I mean, personally, I don't really see a huge issue with it, per se, because he just called him what he was. But at the same time, if you're in their shoes and you're looking at it, it comes off racial. It really, really does. And I can understand where people would take that as a racist comment. I don't think it was racist. Freddie's not racist. I know Freddie isn't racist. Freddie wouldn't be working with as many a Russian fighter, a Filipino fighter, and all, those type of fighters. He wouldn't be working with. He'd be working with all white fighters if he was racist. He's not racist. And then he had to be held back, and then he restrained Alex Ariza, and it was a mess. And supposedly, there's Ellie Sackback was there, the resident worm, the guy who has to be everywhere where drama pops off with a camera, for his ES News, who I think he's a slop journalist to begin with. He doesn't know anything about boxing. He's like the TMZ of boxing. He brings all this like celebrity like angle to boxing and to news reporting, and I just don't respect it. He's a worm, and he was there, and supposedly Freddie said something to him like "you fucking Jew" or something. But if you know the background story or the reason why Freddie has so much dislike for these people is Ellie Sackback was the man who videotaped Brandon Rios making fun of Freddie Roach's Parkinson's in the lead up to the Margarito Pacquiao fight. So right there's no love lost. And that in turn led to Ellie Sackback being banned from ever coming in Wildcard Gym ever again. That was it. He basically shit it all over Freddie and disrespected him. And a week or two before, Freddie had him in the gym. And then you go do that, and that just shows that Ellie Sackback is all he's looking for is money. It doesn't matter to him. He can offend anybody. He doesn't care. And I mean, good on Brandon. I will give Brandon Rios a lot of credit. He stayed away from that. He was focused on what he was doing, and he didn't jump in, and that shows maturity on his end. Good for Brandon to stay out of that. But at the same time, you have and Alex Ariza and Freddie. Freddie basically drew Alex out of Wildcard Gym because of certain things that he was doing and the allegations, and it was becoming a very unhealthy situation at Wildcard, and he removed him from Wildcard, which was the right thing to do because there was a lot of rumors about steroids and this, that, and the other thing. And it was just a mess. It was really a situation that shouldn't have happened. It should have been handled in a more dignified manner. But I can understand Freddie being angry because you got three people there that you don't really like. Forget Brandon Rios. Brandon Rios was actually minding his business, doing what he had to do. But I mean, when you walk into a gym expecting everybody to be cleared out, that's probably why they had it set up the way it was set up, so everybody cleared out, so they can to keep them separated. But no, they had to be there. And Robert's excuse was, oh, we did an ESPN interview, it ran over 20 minutes. Is that Freddie Roach's problem? No, that's not Freddie's problem. That's your problem. So you say there's a schedule from 9 to 11. You're supposed to be out at 11. But it's a lot. It was a lot of combustible elements going on there, and everybody was wrong. Everybody should have handled it differently. But I'm going to just say this right now: Freddie Roach is not racist. He is not racist. Ellie Sackback caught him at a bad time, and you all got to understand that he has Parkinson's. He's not the most mentally sharp. He's not. People who have those type of issues have anger problems, and you get the worst. And when you flare them up, that's what happens. I'm not excusing it, but you got to understand that Parkinson's is a very serious condition. It's a brain injury, and when you have a brain injury like that, you tend to do your behavior pattern is different. I'm telling you, if he didn't have Parkinson's, it would have been handled a lot differently. But he does, and when you have a brain injury, your behavior pattern changes, and I think that's a sign that he. I personally think Freddie shouldn't be training too much longer, because that if God forbid, something ever did pop off again, and he got hit, that would not be good. It would be really, really bad, and I think he shouldn't be training too much longer. I think if once Manny retires, he should just get out of the sport. I think he's a good person. I think he's a genuine person. I just think with his condition, it's not going to be good from here on out.
Bit of a different take. First of all, I think Freddie was a little bit wrong.
Oh yeah, I'm
here's why. In terms of the way he came into the gym.
Oh yeah, he came in there like flying off the handle. I'd agree with that.
And I say that because what if the roles were reversed? He was there doing an interview, and Garcia would have done the same thing to him. You see what you understand?
No, I get you.
And in terms of the effing Mexican or whatever, I'm not saying that Freddie is a racist or not, but I was taken back by what he said. It was like, whoa, you could have chose a better choice of words.
Yeah, but he was, like I said, he was angry, and you got to understand, like I said, with a brain injury like that, your reaction is probably a lot different if you didn't have a brain injury.
Right, but yet still he could have had a better choice of words. I understand the anger because for those who don't know, back in 2010, I want to say, Brandon Rios was caught on camera in the gym mocking Freddie Roach's Parkinson's
videotaped by Ellie Seckback.
Right, the same guy who videotaped this incident that happened yesterday. So for that, they folks in the Rios camp, they should have known better than to go there. But in spite of Freddie Roach's poor choice of words, as far as I'm concerned, it was a little bit insensitive. That's just me. At the same time,
they were equally insensitive.
Alex Ariza was way out of line, mocking Freddie Roach's stuttering issues. Because as we all know, as you said, he has Parkinson's. That's what caused the stuttering right there. So it was really a little indirect attack about Freddie Roach's Parkinson's disease. He didn't have an issue with it when he was training. When he was Manny Pacquiao's trainer, didn't say anything about it then. So why he want to go there now? That says something about Alex Ariza right there. And you're right. I'm not gonna say he acted like a girl because I know girls who are tougher than Alex Ariza. Yeah, I said it. I know in that situation with women who would have been in that same situation, they wouldn't have hauled off and kicked him. They would have punched him right in his face.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's some women that are tough, but that's like somebody that just doesn't have. I mean, a girl as in the sense of he doesn't have a backbone.
Right. And in terms of folks who are upset about Roach, I understand it, but at the same time, folks within Team Rios, they were just as wrong for throwing around homophobic slurs towards Freddie Roach. So at the end of the day, I actually give Robert Garcia some credit because he was a bit confrontational, whatever, but he really could have went there, and he really did. He held back somewhat, and you're right about Brandon Rios. I was surprised he didn't jump in, but he stayed cool because that's not his nature in the past. He stayed cool. So at the end of the day, for me, I think all parties was wrong. Roach was wrong for barging in like that. Alex Ariza was sure wrong for escalating the issue and making it bigger than what it should have been. I think if they take a step back, now Freddie Roach has said in an interview today that he kind of apologized for his actions. He said that things could have been handled better. I hadn't heard anything from Team Rios about that. What does that tell you?
Well, guess what? Then at the end of the day, that just shows you Freddie Roach is a man.
Right.
He's man enough to admit he made a mistake, and he's sorry for it. And that just shows class. That just shows he was in the heat of the moment. He said he realizes he calmed down, and he sat on it, and he thought about it, and he said, well, maybe I shouldn't have done it the way I did it. And he came out and he apologized, and that's what a man should do, and that's what an adult should do. And if they don't want to apologize, that just shows their class and their maturity at the same time.
Okay, absolutely. You're right about that. So for me, it was an ugly incident. It was an incident that really didn't need to happen. But we have to understand that there's a backdrop here. There's extenuating circumstances. There's long held beef between both guys, and it was just ugly. And sadly, it will probably end up benefiting the pay-per-view sales and whatnot, because people are going to read this and invest in the fight because of this. But again, it was just an ugly incident. Any last words about this before we move on and do a preview of the?
Yeah, I just
Rios?
wanted to say, is there a possibility, like I know there's a lot of scripting in boxing where incidents are played up and used to buoy, pay-per-view sales and to promote the fight. And I thought about that for a second. Could that have been a possibility? But at the same time, I realized no, because Freddie's anger towards them is very, very real.
No, I say no because
no,
you don't let go of folks mocking your disease in the way that they did.
Oh, no. At first, I thought about that, and I said to myself, but you know what? Freddie's anger was because he was mocked. And let me tell you something.
And then the thing with Ariza leaving Roach camp, that happened recently, so there's still some issues there as well. So he probably saw them there and whatnot. It was a little hot under the collar going in, and like I said, some things were said that should not have been said, and things just popped off.
Yeah, it's something that shouldn't have happened, and hopefully, I know at the weigh-in it's going to be very, very tense. It's going to be like cutting it with a knife at the weigh-in. But hopefully, I know there's some things you can't take back. What you said, you can only apologize. And hopefully at the end of all of this, they can all shake hands and be adults. That's what I just hope. But I know boxing. A lot of these guys hold beef, and I understand why Freddie's holding a grudge. You don't make fun of somebody's condition. That's something that's very sensitive to him. And the thing with Freddie is it wasn't like he went in the ring. He fought. He was the 80s. He was the 80s version of Mickey Ward. Okay, he was always in great fights on ESPN. Great fights, wars. And he's only lost to the very best fighters, and there's no shame in that. And I just think and as a trainer, I think he's accomplished so much more, and will be remembered more than these guys will be remembered today. Because personally, I'll give you my honest opinion of Robert Garcia. I think he's a flash in the pan. I think in about 5 years he'll be being phased out, because I just don't see him as a top-level trainer for a long time. He just doesn't know everything, to make a great fighter. The only fighter that he has that's the most polished is Mikey. But that wasn't all Robert Garcia. That was also Eduardo, the guy that you don't really see in that camp, and he teaches everything. So at the end of the day, I just think that it is what it is, and I just hope at the end of the day they all act like men and just shake hands and I know you can't take away what was said, but at the same time, that just wasn't a bunch of adults in it. That was a bunch of people acting like hotheads and spoiled, and I think that's what really, really showed. And shame on Ellie Sackback. Shame on him. If you want to videotape that, if you feel that a baiting a race confrontation is your way to get viewers, I feel awfully sad for you, Ellie. I feel very sad for you, because you're not a real journalist. You don't even know anything about boxing. You're just bringing a celebrity hip edge to like boxing interviews. You give no substance to your videos. Name me the last time you had a groundbreaking video about something knowledgeable. Never. The only thing you do is introduce new fighters to the sport that people may not know about. And I do thank him for introducing me to to a lot of people, like Evgeny Gradovich. That's the only thing I could say he's done lately that's even worth anything. Other than that, his videos are nonsense. I don't pay attention to him, and personally, I can't believe he's got so many viewers. I can't believe how many people subscribe to his videos, because mostly they're nonsense. like that video. And basically, I had no respect for Ellie. I lost quite a bit of respect for Robert, and I really had no respect for Ariza to begin with. And I just hope at the end of the day this is all goes away, because this is just bad publicity for boxing. Bad enough we get black eyes, week in and week out. This was something boxing didn't need.
Yeah, indeed, ugly incidents. Words were shared back and forth that shouldn't have been shared, and again, like I said before we began the show, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. And this incident was fueled with animosity and slurs and back and forth nonsense. It was certainly ugly. Let's talk about quickly, since this is the only news of the week that I feel is worth mentioning. Let's go to the fight previews. And since we've been talking about this melee that happened yesterday, it's connected to the fight. Saturday night in Macau, China, HBO pay-per-view. Manny Pacquiao making his return to the sport after getting knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez. He's going to be fighting Brandon Rios. Rios moving up from lightweight and junior welterweight. Your thoughts on this fight? Personally, I look at this fight. Look, Rios is a good fighter. He's tough as an oak. But with that being said, this fight is really set up for Manny Pacquiao to shine. Who's faster than Rios, with hands and feet, punches just as hard, better boxer, more skilled. The question is, of course, how is Manny following his really devastating knockout loss to Juan Manuel Marquez? If he's not too damaged physically or psychologically, I think he boxes the mess out of Brandon Rios. It may stop him.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very one-sided fight. I don't see Brandon Rios being in the fight for 1 minute. He'll be game and competitive. I mean, in the sense of he'll be there. He'll show grit and toughness. But I just don't think he'll win a minute of the fight, personally. I don't think Manny's lost much since the knockout loss. I mean, he may be a little bit slower speed-wise, a little bit. But at the same time, it'll be just enough to beat Rios, who's as slow as molasses. And we know Rios will sit right in front of Manny, and that's easy work for Manny. I think it'll be a fight that will go about 8, 9, 10 rounds. It'll be a one-sided fight. I think Rios will get credit for possibly, his gameness and his, and his heart. But at the end of the day, he's not gonna be in this fight. Now, I see the fight being stopped in the corner after a pretty bad beating, or the ref stopping it. I don't think Rios goes down. I think he goes down swinging. I think he goes down on his feet, and I think personally the best scenario I see is Robert Garcia stopping it in the corner. Because I know for a fact he does not want Rios to go through what Antonio Margarito went through. And then that was something that he probably is going to remember, going into this fight. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be a competitive fight. I thought it would be at first, but the more you look at it, the more you see, unless Manny has really lost something drastic. I mean, is he's slowed down to the point where he's about the same speed as Rios. I don't see Rios even being competitive. I mean, I think he'll be, it'll seem like he'll be competitive when he throws a couple punches back, or shows grit and takes some shots and just keeps marching forward. But other than that, I don't think he's gonna win any of the rounds. I think it's gonna be one-sided, and I think Pacquiao wins comfortably by stoppage late in the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I can't add no more to that. I just think that if Pacquiao is not too damaged, look, Rios will come in. He'll try all he will, but Manny just has too much for him, too much in the speed department, too much in the skill department, as I said before. I wouldn't be surprised if he was to cut Rios up and just basically beat him up over 8, 10 rounds or whatever before the fight will eventually get stopped. Let's move on to talk about a couple of bouts on the undercard. Well, the main bout on the undercard of Rios and Pacquiao rematch between Evgeny Gradovich and Billy Dib. For those who don't, for Gradovich's IBF featherweight belt. For those who don't know, Gradovich scored what many consider one of the upsets of the year, defeating Dib to win the featherweight belt. For those who don't know, Dib is promoted by 50 Cent. In thinking back now, looking now, Kent, since that fight, it wasn't much of a rematch at all. And in assessing this fight, I think Gradovich beats Dib again. I think he beats him worse this time than he did in the first fight. I think Gradovich has improved that much. And Dib subsequently in a couple of fights since, in the one fight since the fight with Gradovich, hasn't looked impressive at all. I think he beats him rather easy this time.
Yeah, I think this
possibly knocks him out.
Yeah, I think he knocks Dib out. That's exactly the way I see it. The one key in this fight is, remember, Gradovich had 2 weeks to prepare for Dib in the first fight. He had in excess of about, I'd say, about 8 to 10 weeks to prepare for the rematch. So we're going to see a lot better Gradovich in this fight. We're going to see a guy has improved. Really, I think that fight beating Billy did wonders for his confidence, because we seen what he did in the Munoz fight. He beat the snot out of Munoz. I mean, every round he beat him down. I didn't give Munoz a single round. It was a one-sided beating, and I mean, it's a pretty bad beating actually. You know, it was a wonder that Munoz was able to finish the fight on his feet. He was cut and his face was swelling. It was a beating, but you could see in that fight that he had improved like the way to cut off the ring and to apply, you know, his pressure more effectively. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the result's going to be any different. I think the only difference is going to be, it's going to be more one-sided. And I think Gradovich knocks him out late. I think he beats up Dib, because if you look at it, Dib is not this great Dynamo Hamed type of fighter, you know, like he proclaims himself to be. Nowhere near the level of Hamed. Yeah, Hamed, yeah, to a degree was overrated. Yeah, but at the same time, Hamed his only loss came to Marco Antonio Barrera, while before the Gradovich loss, Billy Dib lost to Steven Luevano. That just shows you right there he's not really that good. And I just think Gradovich beats him down, grinds him down, throws 100, 115, 120 punches around like he normally does, and I think he stops Dib with between 7 and 9. I don't think it's going to be much of a fight. I think Dib is going to be game for as long as he can, but I think he just succumbs to the constant pressure, and I think it'll be a knockout, more of like just pressure. He just will break from the pressure, and that's what'll happen. And I just don't see Dib doing much better, any better in this fight. I think he's going to do worse.
See, here's the thing. Dib, he's not that great of a boxer where he can stand there and outbox a Gradovich. I think at this point they're even, they're equal. Gradovich may be a little better boxer than Dib, and he doesn't have either the physical strength or the power to do anything to hold Gradovich off, to keep him at bay. So with that, when you have that combination, I just think that ultimately that Gradovich is going to overwhelm him over time. I think you say 7 to 9. I was thinking more like 10 rounds. But that being said, I just think that the strength, the pressure, the accumulation of punches will take its toll on Gradovich, and I just don't see anything in his arsenal to hold Evgeny Gradovich off. And again, I just think he has a really good chance to stop him this time. Let's move on. Interesting bout, and we're going to this the final bout we're going to talk about before we end the show. Interesting bout happening in Manchester, England.
And it's sad. It's a footnote. It's just a footnote to.
Yeah, this is a really terrific fight on AWE. I don't know anything about that channel. Kent, you
That
have
is
any
that
knowledge
is
of that?
that's the former Wealth TV.
Okay.
That it's just it's called now a Wealth of Entertainment, but that's the
Okay.
former Wealth TV.
Well, thanks for updating me. As Carl Froch, who's really been on a roll over the past year or so, he's going to be fighting top contender George Groves for Froch's WBA and IBF super middleweight belt. We've talked about this bout in the past when it was announced. Um, Called me crazy, but from what I've seen of George Groves, I like him a lot. I think he can really fight. Look, Froch has the experience on his side. I think he's the bigger puncher. But I think that George Groves, who's been talking a lot of trash in the lead up, I think he's going to give Carl Froch a heck of a fight. And I would not be shocked at all if George Groves gets a decision against Carl Froch. I know Froch is the favorite, but I like George Groves. And from what I've seen, I think he's going to really give Carl Froch a battle here.
Yeah, I think he's going to give him a tough fight, but I think at the end, Froch's experience and power, I think is going to carry the day, especially late in the fight. And I think Froch wins a close decision, but it will not take away from Groves' performance. I think Groves will have his moments in that fight, many moments in that fight, and I think Froch will have many moments too in that fight. I think it's a very even fight. A lot of people who are saying Froch is going to just wipe the floor with him I think, is a little hasty. I think you're selling George Groves short, but at the same time, I could see why some people would say that. Froch is massive experience. He's been in many title fights, fought the higher level of opposition, but George Groves has skill. He's probably one of the better fighters he's faced recently, as far as boxing ability. But I just see that I think Groves will be very competitive with him, but I just think at the end Froch's experience will get him the late rounds, and he'll eke out a 115, 113, or 116, 112 decision. But it will not take away. I think it will actually win Grove a lot of fans.
Could you see a scenario where uh, the amount of tough fights plus the age will finally have its toll on Carl Froch, who's been fighting a tremendous schedule, going back to the Super 6 tournament in 2009?
Yeah, I think it will at some point. I don't think it'll be this weekend. But then again, you don't know. And I'm going to say right now, it's very possible that Groves wins this fight, too. I think it's a very close fight. It could go either way. I don't think it's a one-sided fight for Froch. I just don't. I could be wrong. I mean, I could be, people may come and comment on the show, call me a loony for thinking that it's going to be a competitive fight, but I just don't see it being one-sided. I see Froch winning, but I don't think it's going to be a one-sided fight, and I think it'll do more for Groves, because if Groves does better than people expect, it's going to raise Grove stock. And personally, I think Froch is still at his best, but at some point he's going to get older, and it may happen this weekend. I don't think it'll be this weekend, but it'll happen at some point. And if he's in a tough fight, I mean, with Groves, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he's in there with a young guy, and this guy still beat James DeGale in a very close and competitive fight. He beat James DeGale,
Who looked very impressive this weekend.
Yes, he did. He looked impressive, but I expected a little bit more. But I'm not gonna throw him down. I'm not gonna throw him under the bus yet. If he performs again in a bigger fight, the way he kind of performed this weekend, even though he impressively won, there was opportunities for him to get Dia Davis out of there, and he didn't. But that's not relevant right now. The important thing is that I think Groves is gonna. I think he's gonna win some more fans. I think he's gonna lose a competitive decision, and he's gonna his stock is gonna go up. Froch's stock will stay the same because he's earned that level. He's constantly fought the best, and everybody used to knock Froch. Oh, he doesn't have skill. oh, he's a one-trick pony. And you know, since 2009, he's been proving all his naysayers wrong. Every time he gets in there, he's fighting a top-level fighter. He hasn't ducked anybody. He doesn't want to duck anyone. He wants to fight the best. That's why he's fighting George Groves, because he wants to fight the best. There's no reason for him. He wanted to fight George Groves because he knew that was the best fighter out there. And it's going to be a very good fight. And, you know, whatever comes out of it, even if Froch dominates Groves, it doesn't hurt Groves. Because if Groves comes out of it and has a great career after it, and everybody looks back in about 15 years and say, well, he lost to Carl Froch early in his career, and Froch is probably damn near a Hall of Famer. If he would retire after that fight, he'd be a Hall of Famer based on his resume. And it will look so much better, like, you know, for Froch if you were to beat Groves, and Groves went on to have a great career. So no one loses in this fight. To be honest with you, no one loses. There's no shame if Groves loses this fight. There's no shame even if Froch loses this fight. No shame in it. They're both very good fighters, and I'm looking forward to that fight. That's probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most this weekend.
Absolutely, so am I. And I think with that, we're going to end on the show on that note. I agree with you. I think I push back against those who think that Froch is going to have his way with George Groves. No, he's not. I could be out of line here, but I just think that George Groves is going to give him a heck of a fight. As I said with that, I think we're going to end the show on that note. Any last words before we head out, Kent?
Enjoy the fights this weekend. Support boxing. Be critical of boxing. You know, sadly, you know, we have incidents where stuff like what happened last night happened, and hopefully there's no more anything like that this year, because, you know, we have our moments where things look really bright, and then we have ugly moments like this, and that gives us a black eye. So support boxing, question boxing, enjoy the fights this weekend. We're gonna do the post-fight show this weekend after the pay-per-view. So hope people tune in, and that's basically it.
Yeah, and then Kent kind of spoiled it for us, but that's okay. I agree with him. Just enjoy the fights and watch the fights, and Pacquiao and Rios, and especially Carl Froch and George Groves. I think it's going to be a terrific bout. As Kent was mentioning, we're going to do a live post-fight show Saturday, immediately at the conclusion of Brandon Rios and Manny Pacquiao. And if you want to be a part of the show, a couple places you can reach out to us. You can reach out at the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. Just go to @P4P Boxing Report. You should be able to find us, or you can reach me out personally. I'll give you my personal Twitter account. You can reach me, or no, I ain't gonna do that. You can reach out to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Facebook page, Google Plus page, and whatnot. If you want to be a part of the show, just let me know. Reach out at those places. I will put links up for that on the blog page and whatnot, and share it all over the place if you want to join us. If you want to join us and talk boxing, talk Pacquiao and Rios and whatnot, cool. We would love to have you. We'd love to have the game of competitive banter, let's say. Just love to have the dialogue back and forth. This has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I want to thank Kent for joining me again this week. For my co-host Kent, I am your host Michael. Again, special live episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Saturday night, immediately following Rios and Pacquiao and Rios. Join us. You want to be a part of the show, just reach out to us on Twitter and whatnot. When I put the information out on the podcast page and on the blog page, I'll give you information where to reach out to me or Ken if you want to be a part of the show. Again, this has been another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You guys have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.